March 29, 2026, in the ink-black water between the Omani coastline and the jagged Iranian shore, something changed. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a radar blip. It was silence. The AIS transponder signals from 14 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, IRGCN, fast attack craft, each one a 23-meter Siraj-class missile boat loaded with C-802 anti-ship missiles and torpedoes, vanished simultaneously from every tracking screen in the region. One moment, they were dots on the tactical display aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln CVN-72. The next, nothing. Just blank ocean and the distant glow of Bandar Abbas, port lights 17 nautical miles to the north. In the Combat Information Center of the Lincoln, Strike Group Commander Rear Admiral Patrick Hale leaned over the Aegis display and said 4 words that would define the next 11 minutes of world history. This is not a drill. What the Admiral didn't yet know, what no one outside of Tehran's underground IRGCN command post knew, was that the disappearance of those 14 fast attack craft was not a malfunction. It was the opening move of Operation Zamzam, a contingency plan Iranian naval planners had spent 4 years refining in classified war game simulations specifically designed to be executed during a moment of maximum Western distraction. The moment had arrived. For 30 days, the U.S.-Israeli air campaign had hammered Iran's nuclear sites, missile depots, and command infrastructure. The Supreme National Security Council had been decimated. 3 IRGCN admirals were dead. But deep in a hardened tunnel complex beneath Bandar Abbas, Vice Admiral Alireza Tangsiri had survived every strike. And Tangsiri had one mission left: close the strait. Not with warships, not with conventional mine-laying operations that satellite imagery would detect in minutes. Iran's strategy was built on 3 simultaneous layers designed to saturate, overwhelm, and paralyze, hitting the U.S. Navy in 3 domains at the exact same moment. Layer 1, mines. In the preceding 72 hours, the IRGCN submarine arm had deployed its 3 operational Ghadir-class midget submarines in shallow water runs along the northern edge of the Hormuz shipping lane. Each vessel had laid Sadaf acoustic-influence bottom mines, 19 of them in total, directly across the inbound tanker traffic separation scheme. These were not old Soviet designs, and these were third-generation mines with active target discrimination systems capable of distinguishing an oil tanker's acoustic signature from a U.S. destroyer's. They would let the warships pass. They would wait for the supertankers. Layer 2, drones. At 0317 hours, 53 Shahed-238 jet-powered kamikaze drones, painted matte black and flying at 30 meters above sea level at 350 knots, were launched from 4 IRGCN fast patrol vessels that had used the coastal radar shadow of Qeshm Island to mask their position. These were not the slow Shahed-136 propeller drones that Gulf air defense systems had grown accustomed to intercepting. The 238 variant cruised at speeds that cut intercept windows from 90 seconds to under 15. Yet they flew in a staggered wave formation specifically engineered to overwhelm the reload cycle of Phalanx CYWS systems, which require 1.5 seconds between burst cycles, a vulnerability Iranian engineers had studied for a decade. Layer 3, missiles. Hidden inside 3 commercial-looking container vessels, anchored in international waters 20 nautical miles south of the shipping lane. Vessels that had been cleared by Lloyd's of London insurance databases and bore the flags of Panama, Tuvalu, and Palau, were Club K container missile systems. Each box held 4 Caliber variant cruise missiles with 450-kilogram warheads, not aimed at warships, aimed at the 2 very large crude carriers currently transiting the strait, the Euronav Hera and the Nissos Delos, each one carrying 2 million barrels of Kuwaiti crude. The plan was not to sink them. The plan was to set them on fire, to fill the narrowest point of the strait with burning oil, dense black smoke, and the psychological horror of an environmental catastrophe that would force Western governments to halt all military operations immediately or face being blamed for the worst ecological disaster in recorded history. It was a trap architected for the 21st century. Asymmetric, deniable, catastrophic, and it had 11 minutes before the first mine-triggering supertanker crossed into the kill zone. At 3:17:14, the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye early warning aircraft of carrier Air Wing 7, call sign Darkstar 601, orbiting at 25,000 feet above the Gulf of Oman, picked up the first anomaly. Its AN/APY-9 ultra-high-frequency radar detected 53 low-observable surface contacts accelerating out of the Keshem coastal shadow at extreme low altitude. The target tracks were inconsistent with any registered commercial or civilian profile in the IFF database. Darkstar 601's tactical coordinator had never seen a swarm this size. His hands moved to the Link 16 uplink immediately. Lincoln Darkstar, Vampire, Vampire, Vampire. 50-plus low-slow contacts, bearing 035, Angels .3, speed 350 knots, hostile, hostile, hostile. 11 miles away aboard the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS, Paul Ignatius DDG-117, positioned at the forward edge of the strike group screen, and the Aegis Baseline 10 combat system had already gone from passive to active track-while scan in under 4 seconds, without a single human input. The Spy-6 V1 radar array lit up the Iranian drone swarm with a precision that generated individual track files on all 53 contacts within 8 seconds. The VLS forward battery of 64 Mark 41 cells immediately received a priority loadout recommendation from the NIFCCA network, SM6 Block IA intercept rapid-fire sequencing. The Paul Ignatius had 42 SM6 rounds in its VLS. The drone swarm had 53 targets. The math was lethal. At 3:18:02, USS Lady Gulf CG-55, the cruiser riding shotgun 2 miles astern, came online with its own Spy 1B radar data feed merged into the Aegis Cooperative Engagement Capability Network. Together, the two platforms shared a single integrated firing solution. They weren't two ships anymore. They were one weapon system. But the math still didn't work. 11 drones would survive the intercept envelope. 11 Shahed-238s flying at 30 meters and 350 knots would reach the Abraham Lincoln in approximately 90 seconds after the SM-6 volley was exhausted. Each one carried a 40-kilogram shaped charge warhead, not enough to sink a Nimitz-class carrier, more than enough to kill the flight deck crew, ignite JP-5 jet fuel in the deck edge elevators, and put the ship out of action for 18 months. The decision that Rear Admiral Hale made in the next 4 seconds would be studied in every naval war college on Earth for the next 40 years. He didn't intercept the drones, he went for the launch platforms. At 3:18:11, the two FA-18F Super Hornets of Strike Fighter Squadron 103, already airborne on combat air patrol at Angels 15, received a direct attack tasking from the carrier's tactical action officer. The targeting data was already in their mission computers, fed directly from the Aegis network via the Cooperative Engagement Capability data link. The IRG-CN fast patrol vessels were still in Iranian coastal waters, technically still inside a recognized exclusion zone that U.S. Rules of Engagement classified as Amber, requiring positive authorization from CENTCOM before kinetic action. The pilots didn't wait. Under inherent right of self-defense protocols activated by the Lincoln's Judge Advocate General 30 seconds earlier, the legal trigger being the confirmed hostile launch of 53 weapons at U.S. Navy assets, the amber light turned green automatically. At 3:18:44, each Super Hornet released 2 AGM-154 CJSOW glide weapons from 15 miles. The JSOW is a standoff weapon. It doesn't need the aircraft to close with the target. It glides, it navigates, it kills autonomously. The 4 weapons separated into terminal dive profiles, their imaging infrared seekers locking onto the heat signatures of the fast patrol vessel's MTU diesel engines. At 3:19:30, all 4 JSOW impacted within a 12-second window. 3 of the 4 Iranian fast attack vessels were destroyed. The 4th was dead in the water, its engines gone. The drone swarm lost its GPS data link relay. 14 of the drones immediately began erratic flight paths as their navigation handoff protocols failed. They crashed into the sea. 39 remained. At 03:19:55, Phalanx CIWS batteries aboard the Lincoln and her escort ships went weapons-free. The 6-barrel 20mm Vulcan cannons began cycling at 4,500 rounds per minute, their Q-band tracking radars painting the remaining drones in terminal kill envelopes. Simultaneously, the USS Paul Ignatius began its SM-6 volley, a rapid sequential ripple fire of 12 missiles in 11 seconds that filled the horizon with contrails and turned the pre-dawn sky orange. The engagement lasted 94 seconds. 36 drones were destroyed. 3 penetrated the outer defensive envelope. 1 struck the Lady Gulf's forward superstructure, igniting a fire in the Combat Information Center that killed 2 sailors and wounded 7 before damage control teams suppressed it in 4 minutes. The cruiser remained combat capable. 2 drones were intercepted by RAM, rolling airframe missile systems, at point-blank range, their fragments raining onto the Lincoln's flight deck, injuring 3 flight deck crew. The carrier was intact. The carrier was operational. The swarm had failed, but the mines were still in the water and the supertankers were still moving. At 3:21, USS Bainbridge DDG-96, operating 12 nautical miles ahead of the convoy corridor, received a flash precedence message from NAV-CENT Bahrain. NSA Signals Intelligence had intercepted a fragmentary IRGCN radio transmission referencing the word Zamzam, a code word that had appeared in captured IRGCN documents seized during a SEAL Team 6 operation in Bandar Abbas 14 months earlier. The document had described a layered strait closure concept. The reference to acoustic influence bottom mines had been assessed as aspirational. It was not aspirational. Within 90 seconds, Bainbridge's AN/SQS-61 hull-mounted sonar, operating in high-frequency active mode, began detecting anomalous bottom contacts along the northern edge of the traffic separation scheme. The contacts were small, 800 to 1,200 pounds, lying directly on the seabed in 40 meters of water. 19 of them spread across a 4.2 nautical mile kill corridor. The VLCCs were 14 minutes away from the first mine. Rear Admiral Hale had 1 asset that could reach the minefield in time. MH-60R Seahawk helicopter serial 166558, call sign Valor 42, armed with the Airborne Mine Neutralization System, AMNS, a fiber optic guided underwater vehicle that homes onto mine contacts and detonates them with a focused charge neutralizer. The problem? AMNS could neutralize 3 mines per sortie before requiring rearming. With 19 mines in 14 minutes, Valor 42 would need to fly 6 consecutive sorties that each took 11 minutes minimum. The math was impossible. What happened next was not in any doctrine. It was not in any war college curriculum. It was improvised by a 34-year-old lieutenant commander named Elena Vargas, who was standing in the Bainbridge's Combat Information Center, and who had done her PhD thesis at the Naval Postgraduate School on autonomous underwater vehicle swarm behaviors. She requested and received in 42 seconds emergency authority to deploy all 8 Mk-18 Mod 2 Kingfish UUVs from Bainbridge's countermeasures stores. The Kingfish is a survey and reconnaissance UUV. It is not a mine neutralization system. It carries no warhead, but it does carry a powerful acoustic transducer for sediment mapping. Vargas's solution was elegant in its simplicity. If the mines used acoustic discrimination to identify tanker signatures, then flooding the water with acoustic noise that mimicked tanker signatures would trigger their own discrimination circuits into constant activation, burning their capacitors and draining their detonation batteries in minutes, not hours. 8 Kingfish UUVs went into the water at 03:22:40. Each one was programmed to broadcast a modulated low-frequency acoustic pattern that Vargas had pulled from a declassified tanker signature database and upconverted to the discrimination threshold of the SADAF mine's known sensor frequency range, a range documented in a 2019 ONI intelligence assessment she had read 3 years earlier and never forgotten. For 4 minutes, 19 Iranian mines sat on the bottom of the Strait of Hormuz, listening to what sounded like a fleet of supertankers sailing directly over them. Their capacitors fired, and their detonation circuits energized, their safeties released. Nothing happened, because there was nothing there to detonate against. At 3:26:14, Lieutenant Commander Vargas reported to Rear Admiral Hale that the SADAF battery depletion window had been crossed. The mines were live but inert. Their detonation energy was spent. The Kingfish acoustic deception had burned out their systems without triggering a single explosion. The supertankers transited the mine corridor at 3:28. They passed through clean water. The container ships, 3 of them, 14 nautical miles to the south, still at anchor in international waters, their Club K systems still live, their targeting solution still locked onto the two VLCCs. CENTCOM had tracked these vessels for 11 days, and they had been flagged by the Defense Intelligence Agency as potential Q-ship platforms on March 18th. But the flags of convenience, the falsified Lloyd's documentation, and the political sensitivities around attacking vessels in international waters had kept them in an amber status that nobody in the Pentagon had been willing to turn green. At 3:29, someone turned it green. A single B-21 Raider, operating in its first real-world combat configuration, flying dark at 42,000 feet over the Gulf of Oman, dropped 3 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, modified for anti-ship surface strike in a classified configuration that has never been officially acknowledged. Each weapon weighed 13,600 kilograms. Each one hit its designated vessel within a 9-meter circular error probable. The 3 container ships ceased to exist as military threats in 1.4 seconds. The Club K systems they carried were destroyed before a single launch command could be transmitted. The Strait of Hormuz remained open. By 0341 hours, 24 minutes after the first AIS signal vanished, the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group had neutralized all 3 layers of Operation Zamzam: 53 drones, 19 bottom mines, 3 Q-ship missile platforms, 2 sailors were dead, 7 were wounded. 1 cruiser had a fire-damaged CIC. The carrier battle group was at 94% combat effectiveness. In Bandar Abbas, Vice Admiral Tangsiri stared at a situation board that showed nothing. No drone confirmations, no mine detonation reports, no Club K launch acknowledgements. The operation he had spent 4 years building had been dismantled in less than 24 minutes by a combination of 2 things Iranian war planners had consistently underestimated: technology they didn't understand, and people who knew how to use it. The geopolitical aftermath was measured not in territory, but in silence. Iran did not announce the failure of Operation Zamzam. The Kremlin, which had provided Tangsiri with satellite imagery showing the Lincoln's patrol pattern, went quiet. The 3 container ship crews, 47 men, mostly Bangladeshi and Filipino nationals recruited through a Pakistani shipping broker, were recovered from the water by USS Bainbridge and turned over to Omani authorities. The Strait of Hormuz carried 21 million barrels of oil the following day. Markets barely moved. The premium on war risk insurance for Gulf tankers dropped for the first time in 6 weeks. But in the corridors of power in Washington, a different question was circulating, one that had no comfortable answer. The B-21 that ended the operation, the aircraft that no one will confirm was even there, carries enough ordnance on a single unrefueled sortie to strike Tehran, Isfahan, Bandar Abbas, and Bushehr in the same mission window. The next time Iran activates a contingency plan, will there be a Vice Admiral Tangsiri in the underground command center to receive word that it failed? Or will the bunker be empty before he gets there? The Strait of Hormuz is open today. Whether it stays open tomorrow depends entirely on one thing: the speed of the next decision. And in modern warfare, the side that decides fastest wins. Always. Stay sharp. Stay informed. And tell us in the comments, do you believe Iran still has the capability to close the strait? Or has this operation proved that the window has permanently closed?